Okay, so the goal of this video is to show you how to change your gear oil in your lower unit. This is a Honda 225. It's an AK3 model, basically 2013. But a lot of times they're pretty similar, especially if you have other lower units. So these bolts are pretty tight and they're just flat heads. So what I recommend doing, this is from Napa, but you can go to really anywhere. As long as it's soft, not completely hard, it's got a little rubber in it. Then I usually wrap it with a diaper. You can do a paper towel, whatever you want. The idea is I'm going to have to push most of my weight up into the gear case when I'm turning. If I turn by just trying to sit here without pushing into it, I'm going to strip it. You can see there's a little strip right there, and on up here later you might be able to see it a little easier. So I'll kind of show you my technique from a little farther away, but just to give you a close-up zoom, you're going to need to get it flat. Don't do this, that, make it perfectly flat. Alright, so I've got the skeg mostly parallel to the ground, and what I'm going to try to do is use my body weight and lean a lot of what I can into this bolt right here while both my hands are kind of turning with my elbow propped up against my body. So I don't have to worry about using my biceps and shoulders trying to push into the boat. I'm just going to lean in with my body, and then I've got two hands to worry about turning it. That one was particularly sticky, but I got it, and that's the goal. Make sure you don't strip it. I'm gonna move my oil pan into place. It's gonna drip really slowly. That's all right. Put this up here for later. Put it on the trailer there. I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna lean into this bolt with my body while I'm turning it, and you'll see it flow a lot faster. Well, that one came easy. You'll notice the gear oil is blue, looks really dirty. It's not, it's just the type of gear oil I use, which I'll show you later. But one thing I was going to show you, you can see how this bolt has got a little magnet on the end. Maybe you can't, you'll just have to trust me. Usually you need to clean it a little bit. With these, I shouldn't have used this. Generally, you're going to want to use something like a clean shop towel, something that's not going to leave a lot of debris. The last thing you need is for a little hair to get on this little gasket in here and start leaking salt water into your gear case. But in case it does, that's why I use this blue stuff, which I'll show you what it is. But you want to clean off all the little magnetic shavings. Check for big big pieces coming off in here. And then if you see any big pieces on here, it's trouble. However, if you see these little shavings, it's nothing to worry about. All right, so this is an invention not of my own, but of someone else's that I've been using, and it seems to be working out pretty well. If you just use one of these little weed cleaners that you can get at any store, if you look at this one, it's Ace Hardware. It's pretty simple. It's just one of these little weed cleaners, and then we just got a couple of hose clamps. If you look, little hose clamps right here, just the end of some of the air compressor tubing at the end of a, or even plumbing tubing, really, just a little bit of extra pressure. This is just an air compressor nozzle used for cleaning. We just slip it right over that tip right there, and then I'll just tighten this back down, but that's what I always use in order to clean these guys here, or not clean, get the oil in there, and there you go. You've got yourself a pressurized little pump. You can get the gear oil in the case, because for these you're gonna have to fill from the bottom up. Now it's the same thing with the oil as the gear oil. It's got different gears. I'm not sure, I don't really understand everything inside, but you're gonna need to change the elevation in order to get all of the little areas free of oil. So I'll go flat, I'm gonna go back up again, probably go flat in order to fill it eventually. But I'll be back here. If you need to go up and down a couple times, just swish the oil back and forth until you're comfortable with the area that you've gotten all of it drained that you need to. Alright, one more thing I was going to mention. On each of those screws, you're going to have a little O-ring at the bottom. This one is one with a magnet. Obviously this is going to go up the very bottom. Make sure this O-ring seats at the very bottom. You don't want it up at all. If you need to, get a screwdriver, get a little gasket removal tool, and make sure it's all the way pushed down at the base. You don't want one part at the base, one part curled up way up here. Just make sure that that little O-ring that sits very bottom at the base there is all the way down. All right, so pretty important as far as this goes. I poured in this. It's not that I'm trying to make a plug for it, but this is what we use, even though it's a Honda's. We use the Mercury, and there's high performance gear oil. It's what we use. There are a couple of different kinds for Mercury, but ask your guy. A lot of times this is what our shop recommends using here for lower units. A lot of times even for Hondas, because it's really good stuff. Go on a lot of the forums, you'll see the same thing. Used to be High Performance Gear Plus, I think, or something. Anyway, filled it up, put my tube back in, just pump it up, and now it's ready to fill. Alright, so we're all ready to pump. I've drained everything. You see it's not even dripping out anymore. So this little guy's going in the tip. Just to make sure, a lot of times before I do, it's a lot of really tight tolerance gears. Just going to give the little tip of the nozzle a clean, so we know that there's nothing getting in there that shouldn't be. And what's nice about this, here, let me go down just a little bit more. You can see we've got, we'll squeeze on the handle and then let it pump. And then you're going to need to keep giving this pumps. Okay, now you can see it's coming out pretty good. Should have shut it off a little earlier. So here's what we're gonna do. You can see it's a nice blue color, at least for this stuff. Make sure this is not the magnet one. This is your top one. It's got a Phillips on it. The other one's solely a flathead, but this one has a Phillips and a flathead spot for screwdrivers. You can just get it in finger tight, but make sure you get it. I usually just dig my nail into it. Make sure get that gasket seated nice and tight up against it. Now for this, I'll usually give it a little extra squeeze. 1, 2, all good. Just filling it extra just a little bit. Make sure you've got your gaskets lubed up. This one's got oil all over it because my thumb. Just lube it up a little bit. Plus it'll get lubed, you'll see. I'm gonna put it in. A little bit's gonna drain, so make sure you've got your catch pan ready. Alright, actually all I did was raise it up just a little bit. I haven't even tightened the bolts yet. Just cleaning off any extra gear oil. I'm gonna grab this, push against it to tighten. We don't need to put it on there like the Hulk. We're just gonna get it nice and tight. We won't be down here for another 100 hours. Who knows when that'll be. Get this one nice and tight. Most important thing is, don't strip these. As a matter of fact, when I order parts, I always have an extra one of each of these, just in case I strip it. It happens. But that's it. Everything's clean. Everything's tight. You can double check if you want. But that's it. Easy as that to change your gear oil.